Pop culture often uses the term narcissism to describe everyday vanity, an obsession with selfies, high self-confidence, or a demanding boss. A clinical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD, describes a severe, rigid, and maladaptive personality organization. The American Psychiatric Association requires a persistent pattern of grandiosity, a constant need for admiration, and a structural inability to experience empathy. Developmental psychology tracks the origins of this condition to two specific childhood environments. A child subjected to severe emotional neglect may construct a grandiose psychological shield to defend against overwhelming shame. Conversely, a 2015 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences showed that parental overvaluation, treating a child as inherently superior to others, can prevent the development of realistic psychological boundaries. In both developmental paths, the child fails to develop the capacity to regulate self-esteem independently. The resulting adult operates with a profound internal void, requiring constant external affirmation to maintain a fabricated identity. This topographical map highlights the left anterior insular cortex. Voxel-based MRI scans reveal that individuals diagnosed with NPD exhibit significant reductions in gray matter volume in this specific region. The insular cortex is linked to cognitive and emotional empathy. The volume of gray matter here directly correlates with a person's capacity to identify with and care about the feelings of others. Variations in structural volume extend to the frontal regions, specifically the right dorsolateral and ventromedial prefrontal areas. These sections govern executive functioning and the suppression of impulsive reactions. A physical deficit here explains the intense, unchecked emotional dysregulation a narcissist exhibits when their ego is threatened. Interacting with an individual with NPD means engaging with an altered neurological architecture. Lacking internal mechanisms for self-regulation, they compulsively extract validation, clinically termed narcissistic supply, to maintain their stability. Objective cognitive intelligence dictates the exact methods a narcissist uses to secure this emotional supply. Highly intelligent narcissists lean heavily on narcissistic admiration. They possess the cognitive bandwidth to cultivate powerful networks and deploy sophisticated self-promotion. By weaponizing cold empathy, the cognitive understanding of another's emotions without the affective experience of caring, they locate deep vulnerabilities, using subtle intellectual gaslighting to dismantle their targets while maintaining a professional facade. Individuals with lower cognitive abilities struggle to maintain that sophisticated camouflage. Lacking the patience or actual achievements for sustained self-enhancement, they default to narcissistic rivalry. This manifests as crude bullying, transparent lies that are easily disproven, and combative temper tantrums. The mechanism of extraction adapts to the individual's mental capacity, but the objective remains identical: the parasitical extraction of psychological supply. Looking at this chart plotting hormonal levels over time, the first stage, idealization, creates overwhelming affection and manufactured intimacy. This floods the victim's brain with oxytocin, the attachment hormone, and massive spikes of dopamine, the reward neurotransmitter. As the timeline progresses into the devaluation stage, sudden psychological abuse triggers the severe release of cortisol and adrenaline. The abuser then intersperses the cruelty with brief moments of kindness. This schedule of intermittent reinforcement hooks the brain onto erratic dopamine hits amidst cortisol-drenched stress, forging a biochemical trauma bond that mimics the biochemistry of severe substance addiction. The relationship is then abruptly severed in the discard stage. However, often triggered by a loss of supply elsewhere, the abuser utilizes manufactured crises to suck the victim back in, a phase known as hoovering. If successful, the cycle immediately resets. Sustained exposure to this high-conflict environment causes measurable physiological damage. Research conducted at Stanford University indicates that the chronic elevation of cortisol shrinks the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory and regulation, while simultaneously enlarging the amygdala, the primitive fear processing center. Victims endure agonizing cognitive dissonance, attempting to reconcile the loving persona from the idealization phase with the cruel reality of the devaluation. Coupled with physical alterations to the brain's memory and fear centers, breaking away becomes a physically painful ordeal. clinical identification of this abuse is heavily skewed. Historically, diagnostic criteria for NPD were derived from male case studies, emphasizing overt arrogance and aggressive exploitation. When women exhibit the subtle, relationally aggressive traits of vulnerable narcissism, clinicians are significantly more prone to misdiagnose them with borderline personality disorder. If the abuser's false self is undeniably shattered through public exposure of a crime or a total loss of social status, they experience a narcissistic collapse. Flooded with repressed shame and anxiety, they suffer severe psychological decompensation, resulting in extreme outbursts of vindictive rage and paranoia. To avoid a total collapse and regain dominance over a fleeing victim, they routinely deploy proxy abusers. Colloquially known as flying monkeys, these enabling friends or gullible colleagues are recruited to carry out a coordinated smear campaign. By utilizing DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender, the abuser twists the narrative, projecting fragility to ensure the community views the actual victim as unstable, preemptively discrediting the truth. When shared child custody, mandatory elder care, or inescapable professional entanglements make immediate departure impossible, targets must rely on strict, unemotional operational frameworks for survival. The gray rock method instructs the target to become entirely uninteresting and devoid of emotional reaction, starving the abuser of dramatic supply. In highly scrutinized environments like court-ordered co-parenting apps, the yellow rock method adds a polite, professional facade while remaining completely fact-focused and emotionally disengaged. Written communications should follow the BIF method: brief, informative, friendly, and firm. Internally, the target must adopt the DEEP technique. Don't defend against fabricated accusations. Don't engage in the manufactured chaos. Don't explain to someone lacking empathy, and don't personalize the pathology. The clinical consensus is clear. Because pathological narcissism involves a structural deficit resistant to change, absolute no contact remains the definitive strategy to halt the abuse cycle. Whenever legally and logistically possible, this detachment provides the necessary isolation from stress required for the neurological wounds to heal.